Convert between decimals and fractions. So we're going to go both ways here. Let's start with fraction to decimal. Now, one thing I want to tell you about a fraction is the same thing as division. So when we see a number like 1 over 2, this is the same as 1 divided by 2, or 1 divided by 2. So you can either punch that into your calculator, 1 divided by 2, or you can use long division, which we will do here in this video. So remember, the decimal goes up, and then 2 goes into 10 5 times. So 1/2 is the same as 0.5. Let's do some of those. So first, we're going to change the fraction to a decimal of 7/16. First step, because again, we're going to do long division, is I'm going to take 7 divided by 16. Now, you'll notice that 16 does not, in fact, go into 7. So I am going to add a decimal and put a 0, because 7.0 is the same as 7. Now, how many times does 16 go into 70? Well, before I do that, let's bring the decimal point straight up. And 16 goes into 70 4 times. So remember, long division. So 4 times 6 is 24. So 4, carry my 2. And then 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6. So 64. I subtract those, and 70 minus 64 is 6. Let's change colors. So now, 16 does not go into 6, so I add another 0 and bring it down. So how many times does 16 go into 60? Well, if 4 times is 64, we need 1 less than that. So we'll use a 3. 3 times 6 is 18, so 8, carry my 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, so that gives me 48. 60 minus 48 is 12. So I'm still not done. So I add another 0, bring it down. 16 goes into 120 7 times. And if you don't know this, you might have to go on the side and do like 16, 32, 48, 64, 80, and just make a list, right? Because this is 16 times 1, 16 times 2. Sometimes that's helpful or needed depending on the numbers. So 7 times 6 is 42. Carry my 4. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 4 is 11. I subtract those and get 8. So just one more of these. I have another 0, bring it down. 16 goes into 80 5 times, and that is equal. So this decimal approximation, not approximation, this decimal value is 0.4375. Let's do one more, not quite as long, but this is a good review on long division as well. So I take 34 divided by 125. The number on top always goes underneath the division bar. So again, 125 does not go into 34, so I add a decimal point, and that decimal point goes straight up on top. So how many times, sorry about that, how many times does 125 go into 340? Well, 3 times would be 375, so our answer is just 2. So 2 times 5 gives me 10, carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 2 times 1 is 250. So when I subtract 340 minus 250 gives me 90. I add a 0, bring it all the way down. 125 goes into 900 7 times. So 7 times 5 is 35, carry my 3. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 3 is 17, carry my 1. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 1 is 8. And I subtract. 900 minus 875 is 25. One more time, add a 0, bring it down. And we know that 125 goes into 250 2 times. Nice and even. So our decimal equivalent is 0.272. And now let's go the other way. Let's start with a decimal and go to a fraction. When we do this, we have to know decimal, place value. So if we think about a decimal and we have place value, right? Okay, so this is ones because that's to the left. On this side, we have tenths, hundredths. This one is hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, and so on and so forth. So what this means is if I have a number here in the tenths, I would put it over 10. If I have two numbers that take up these two spots, I would put it over 100. If I have three numbers, I would put it over 1,000. And then we would reduce the fraction from there. So let's do a few. Convert the decimal to a fraction. So it's about place value. This is just one place past. And remember, one place past is tenths. So 0.3 is the same as 3 over 10. That is not reducible, so that is our fraction. 0.28. Now I have two places, which is hundredths. So I would take 28 and put it over 100. Now, both of these numbers are reducible by 4. So if I take 28 divided by 4, I get 7. And 100 divided by 4 is 25. So my reduced fraction is 7 over 25. If you had looked at 28 over 100 and said, hey, they're both even. Even numbers are reducible by 2. That is a phenomenal step because 28 divided by 2 is 14. 100 divided by 2 is 50. It makes your number smaller. Then you can say, hey, those are also reducible by 2, and you get 7 over 25. It doesn't matter what road you take, you're going to end up at the same spot. That's what's important. One more, 1.73. Now here we have a number out front. So we are going to have 1 and some fraction because this 1 is a whole number. So now we are really just focused on the two numbers past. And if I have 2, remember that's hundredths. So I take 73 over 100. That is not reducible. So my final answer is 1 and 73 hundredths.